That's probably got a few people worried.
Yeah, there was a little bit of a... shall we start again?
Yes. I suddenly had a thing come up on the screen. It said, "Warn, there is another system." So I don't know what that's about. I'll just wait. I'm just going to see how many. Just have a quick look in the comments to see who the first person is to get that pop culture reference.
Mine just says private chat.
All right. Oh God, it's doing that again. All right then. Anyway, welcome everybody. Welcome to the Interesting Modelling Company migraine special, in which we'll see how long we can go tonight before I'm very ill on camera. Never mind.
Anyway, I'm trying to give him a migraine.
I'm just trying to milk some sympathy here.
Bear with me.
Interesting Modelling Company.
Oh, he's got his microphone on. Right.
I just needed turning off because I can't see the chat and I want to see the chat.
Turn it off. I can't. I don't know what's going on there. I can't. No, I can't see what's going on there. We'll have to skip along that for the moment. Well, anyway, welcome to tonight's show. We're going to have to talk about some new stuff tonight, and then probably just field questions that we can't seem to get up on screen at the moment. Never mind. So, as ever, this week again, I'm joined by our correspondent from the other end of Somerset.
From down south.
Down south. That's South Somerset. Are you south or west? No.
Well, southwestish sort of.
South Somerset.
It's not part of the Devon border, and it's really, really close to the Dorset border. So,
you got to be careful there. They'll start putting cream on your scone first before they put the jam on.
Which is wrong, but not enough to make me really lose any sleep.
Yeah. Well, anyway, right. We have been building models here, and I just made look. We've actually got
the shock when I came on live and caught you modelling.
I was actually doing some modelling to the best of my abilities at the moment, but we will have a quick chat about this tonight because we are going to mention Special Hobby on a couple of occasions this evening. But I've started just preliminarily getting bits and pieces together on this. It made more sense to install these bulkheads before painting for reasons. Well, because I don't like putting bulkheads in place when things have been painted. The one observation I have made so far, which reinforces something I said on the pop-up live during the week, is that certainly the smaller sprues, all the detail sprues like these are Tamiya quality sharpness. These are very, very good. It's the larger parts that seem to be a little bit more on the woolly side, I think is the best way of putting it. It's not helped by the fact that let's just switch cameras a second. Bear with. It's not helped by the fact that you've got these locations and you've got locating pins. These locating pins are absolutely no use whatsoever. They're just
get rid of them.
Rid of them. Also, where you've got the corresponding holes on the other side, as you may notice, I don't know if you can see that there. Oops, let's get it up to the camera. Oh, get there in the end. I don't know if you can see if I turn it, but they are actually they don't fill through. The holes are too close to the surface. So what you're getting is small indentations appearing on the actual mating surface.
Like a tiny little bit of sinkage, is that?
Yes, it is. I don't know. We'll take some photographs, but it's a tiny little bit of sinkage. So you are going to have to approach this kit like you would with a high quality limited run kit. It's not going to fall together like, it's not going to be a Tamiya F4 or anything like that, or a Tamiya Tomcat. I mean, that's not talk this kit down. It is exceptional quality, but I think the fuselage halves and the wings appear to show the upper limits of what Special Hobby can do, or what Special Hobby can do with the tooling they use for these kits. And you were talking before the show about how Special Hobby essentially have two tiers of kits.
Well, yeah, these are, I mean, stuff like the, the Mirage and the Nats and the Cobras and stuff like that. They're all of Special Hobbies, more recent, super high quality, long run tooling kits that are going to design to be around for decades and see multiple boxings. Now, Special Hobbies still do quite a lot of stuff, which is more in the line of traditional limited run. The likelihood is that in 5 years' time, possibly, the molds for this Whirlwind will be worn out or won't exist anymore. They're designed to fill kind of a niche in the market, but one that probably won't stand, 50 or 60,000 examples. So if it won't stand that kind of, if they're not going to invest in long run steel tooling for something they can't guarantee the longevity of in terms of return on investment. So these are more limited run, basically. Special Hobby still have a 1 foot firmly in their sort of their legacy of as a limited run manufacturer. Now that's gradually being supplanted as we go along more and more with with steel toolings for the long run, especially with the recent Messerschmitt 109, the BF 109 that they've done with Eduard, which is just phenomenally nice.
I haven't seen it yet, so
and I haven't actually seen it in the flesh, but obviously all the images of it say that it's basically it's all but an Eduard kit. So yeah, and the Whirlwind just fits into that, whereas the Tempest was a bit more, they can probably guarantee a bit more of a longevity out of that tooling than they can the Whirlwind. However much we love the Whirlwind, we also have to be perhaps realistic about its,
only if it was operated by 2 squadrons, essentially.
Yeah. So it's, much as we love it, it's not going to be probably a serious long-term prospect for them like the Tempest was. And bear in mind, this is actually, when you can pick this up for between 56 and 60 pounds, that's getting on for 15 to 20 pounds cheaper than the Tempest was when it was released about 5 or 6 years ago.
Was it 5, 6 years ago?
Yeah. About 4, well, it was at least 5, wasn't it? The original the original Mark V was released.
Well, just going to do Scalemates, Special Hobby, Tempest, 132nd or 123rd, as I put it here. You're right, 2016.
Yeah, and I mean, part of the reason I can sort of date that quite well is because Robin Powell was building one while he was still living in Poole, and he's now been in France for 4 years or so. So I love the way I can date kits by events rather than.
I'm the same. It's either a news item or something, or it just, I will show you actually. We're dangerously close to actual modelling here.
Easy.
You can see that. No, it's the shelf for the radio that goes behind the cockpit. And Special Hobby mould these kind of stringers, but the holes are all indented but not actually hollow. So Matey here has been going at it with his drills and his files, and has opened them all out. Again, another observation about this is that you will have to kind of deburr the edges, because they do tend to have a little bit of a prominent seam line on them. Also, I had to really thin these down a bit to get them to fit into the channels and actually kind of line up vertically, rather than kind of wanting to splay out at the sides. But again, that's what we've got, these beautiful Infinity sanding sticks.
That's why we have sanding implements of abrasion. But to be honest, that's pretty much par for the course with most kits these days, due to the sheer precision of the reproduction these days.
Yeah.
Any kind of, even we've seen time and time again how even a coat of paint can throw the fit of an Airfix part out when it
that's precisely why I wasn't going to paint these bulkheads and the interior and then try gluing painted parts in place, because it's I hate that. I loathe that. And these are easy to paint and weather anyway where they are, so I'm not going to lose any sleep over that.
The fit is enough on the side that they're not glued, as long as it actually closes up, then it's not an issue, is it?
That's the other thing I needed to check at a very early time, was to make sure, as this is going together, that these fuselage halves are going to fit without fouling, without these bulkheads fouling anything up. And they do, although this one is pushing, see, limited run this, it's pushing the lower part of the fuselage out a bit.
There you go. So that might be that might be again an implement of abrasion to to deal with that.
It is just literally taking off a segment there, and that's it. Yeah. Then it will close up. So, like I say, it's some modeler input required, but it's a small price to pay.
It's kind of like the discussion that we were having last week, and I'm a massive fan of models fit these days, but that's because I've learned to cope with them and appreciate where I need to be checking fit, where I need to be adjusting fit. It's all just a completely natural process for me now when I'm building putting a model fit kit together like this, and so I sort of wax lyrical on them without perhaps fully appreciating that maybe slightly less experienced modelers would struggle with it.
Well, I'm just going to try and prove a point here to see how easy that is to fix that.
Modeling live. Yeah,
this is it. Just there's also I've also noticed that there is a kind of there's like a weird kind of molding lip coming off the end of those parts there as well. So it's not. That's better now. I mean, you saw it's taken less time to actually almost fix this than it would to kind of mash away at a keyboard in Outrage. So I'm going into this fully expecting that there are going to be moments of interesting moments, but that's a small price to pay for having a 32nd scale whirlwind that is pretty much almost a mainstream injection molded kit. So hurrah.
Some modeling required.
Sorry?
Some modeling required.
Well, are we not modelers? Right, I've got some of the comments are coming through, but it's all a bit bitty at the moment.
Man, I'm a master of over abrasiveness. Are you talking about your character or your modeling there?
All right, hang about. There we go. Anthony Bird says, how much rough to the field texture on that kit? Again, that's an interesting one, because these parts are beautiful. These almost look like beryllium cast copper. They've got that really smooth, shiny plastic thing. But the large bits have that slightly kind of spark eroded texture, which is what they are. I think these are spark eroded. So these have a little bit of a texture to them. To be honest with you, it's not going to bother me, because this will sort it out, or this will.
Quite often, people sort of talk about the texture of a model, surface texture. But most of the time, if it's not high gloss finish, quite a coarse texture on a model is going to be totally invisible when it's finished.
Yeah.
And it comes back to what I've been discussing with Jennifer in recent months, in that for the vast majority of modeling, there's no point in going any finer than 800 grit wet and dry. There's just no. It doesn't serve. You're wasting time trying to get this super smooth surface, which, if you're doing even a satin or a matte finish, certainly it just doesn't get you any further forward. You waste time doing it, and it's the same with quite a lot of these surface finishes. A lot of the spark eroded surface finishes and stuff. I've never had that be the slightest issue over paint and varnish.
No.
I really, really haven't. And I think perhaps people over egg that particular pudding somewhat. I can't remember too. I think maybe you know, some of the stuff that Occidental did, and some of the stuff like the Airfix Buccaneer, maybe could do with a light polish over. But even that, I can remember when I built that when it was released, and it's really quite it's quite a noticeably spark eroded finish on that Buccaneer. But even then, undercoats under a satin paint finish, it's not visible. It's completely invisible.
Another observation I will make about this is that to some extent, I almost wish that the panel lines on this fuselage were more to the depth of the ones on things like the Nat. You know, just a little bit deeper. These are a little bit. It's beautifully done, but you can have a surface finish that is so fine that it really is gonna vanish under a coat of paint.
It's one of my major criticisms these days of quite a lot. Zvezda are quite guilty of this quite often, and certainly in 70-second scale, where they have these incredibly fine detail that it's so fine that it can actually fade in and out, and that can fade in and out from shot to shot of the production run.
Yeah, I'm certainly looking at this here, and some of those rivets, beautiful, but they do kind of like they do kind of even on a flat surface in a straight line, they're there, they're not there. So I know it sounds like we've got it in for this kit tonight. I honestly haven't. These are just.
I think we're making perfectly fair observations while retaining our enthusiasm for the subject and the general quality of the kit.
Oddly, the inside of the fuselage is actually smooth. It's the outside that's got the texture to it.
Yeah. I mean, I think never let it be said that we are kowtowing to anybody. We're quite happy to give a warts and all. People know how much I love Zvezda kits, and I've just been critical of their surface detail. Mm-hmm. It's the fact that I think their engineering is some of the best in the business these days doesn't mean they're above criticism in certain areas.
No, absolutely.
So if they're not above criticism, then that criticism should be leveled.
Yeah. We'll talk about another special hobby kit, and I'm just queuing it up here for a second because it's disappeared off the screen again. And that is Special Hobby are doing an AH1G. Is it GZ?
No, it's going to be an H1G stroke Q and probably an early S, which I will run over with you if you like.
There we go.
Variants. They released sort of photographs of this initial tooling for the AH1G stroke Q that it's being sort of advertised as at the moment, and it looks remarkably comprehensive from what I can see looking at that. People wonder why I'm looking over there. Actually, I'm looking at my monitor screen. It's got the full XM35 20mm cannon system there. Lots of stores, 3 different vertical tails that I can see.
We'll point out this is a 1/48 scale.
This is 1/48 scale. So we 1/48 scale is pretty long overdue for Cobras. I would suggest. So bearing in mind, 5 or 6 years ago now, they released a 72nd one, which is a really nice model. A few little minor issues with it, which I think, as I can see on this, they've corrected with the air intakes and stuff. But yeah, I mean, this is one of those where it's definitely one of their full steel long run. Yeah. This is going to be around for a long time type kits. But yeah, the sheer amount of options on it in terms of it's got both styles of skid. It's got 2 different nose turrets that I can see there. The initial nose will be for an AH1G, but obviously it's going to have the TTS, the tow targeting system, because there's tow missile pods there as well, which will be on the Q when that's released. No clear parts there, so I wonder if they're going to do. It's broken down enough for later variants with the flat plate canopy, the S and the F with the flat plate canopies. We can hope. but it's the basis of a complete range of single-engined Cobras in 48 scale, which is fantastic news. All round, really. Look forward to getting hands on one of these, because again, as we discussed the other day with the ICM kit, which is also gorgeous, not much of a space hog in any scale. It's such a narrow helicopter. So yeah, it's long overdue, and I know Special Hobby had announced this quite a few years ago. In fact, I'm looking there, I can see the TTS as well. There's the yeah, I can see the tow target system as well, so that's included on the sprues. Yeah, very comprehensive looking at that, and I really look forward to getting my hands on that. But we did discuss a minor foible, didn't we?
Just going to say, let's get to the deal breaker.
No, well, I don't think it's a deal breaker. But one of the things I've noticed is that there's a kind of cap that goes on top of the doghouse on the Cobra, and it leaves a very pronounced rim around the edge of the doghouse. Nearly everybody has done this molded in with the fuselage halves, which gives you a really difficult seam right through the center line of that to deal with, and especially around that rim itself. It's just a really awkward solution that I'm not impressed with. More so because John's just highlighting it there. More so because Matchbox got it right nearly 50 years ago on the 72nd scale kit, where that was a drop-in piece that kind of went over, dropped into the top of the fuselage in one piece, and sort of eradicated all of those issues. A really elegant solution, and it's one of those minor details that nevertheless irritates. And I think I'll be looking to get the Fusion 360 out and perhaps design a drop-in replacement It's going to be easier to cut those parts away from the fuselage on the Special Hobby kit and drop a 3D printed replacement into location there.
It's amazing sometimes how model kit companies they repeat errors that ironically Matchbox solved nearly 50 years ago. They do things and you think, Matchbox, they did it this way. Why have you gone down that route when this is the elegant, simple solution?
Yeah, they did it this way and it was so right. It was so right. And 50 years, 45 years hence, we've got a new, otherwise extremely high quality new tool, and it's just got this sort of not silly error, but an irritating error.
Is it an error? I'd call it a design decision.
A design decision that I think is a design flaw. I think it's a flawed execution of something that was done far more elegantly 4.5 decades ago on a different scale on an otherwise not brilliant model, it has to be said. But that kind of a solution is just very elegant, and you wonder why perhaps they haven't looked around and gone, oh, that's nice, why don't we do it that way? It kind of befuddles me a little bit. It really does.
I got a question here from David Hanson. Where are we? Where did David Hanson's go? He says, apples and oranges perhaps, but any difficulties locating the cockpit component so far? I asked because that was a criticism of the Special Hobby Tempest. If I recall, the instructions are vague in places. Actually, David, the instructions in this are beautifully clear, and absolutely no problems locating any of these bits so far. As I say, the only thing is, I want to get these in place and get them solidly in place so that it gives me a better idea of how the fuselage is going to go together, and it also will throw up any problems. Like I say, we've got a little bit of fit problem at the bottom here. It's not a fit problem; it's a little bit of a continuity problem, but that can easily be solved by sanding it down. In fact, I'm just having a look, and I actually think it's also the plastic on this part of the fuselage here, just there, is actually thicker than the other side. and that's why it's pushing down. So,
Yeah.
you know, these are things to know. This is why we build models, because you can pass whatever kind of hiccups you come across, you can pass them on to other people so that they don't repeat the don't repeat the same things.
Measure twice, cut once, and plan as you go, and adapt as you go.
In fact, I'm just literally going to adzing, eh? I'm just going to add some of that plastic away. Oh, this is like a frog instruction sheet, this. Let's get rid of some of that, and I'm sure that will improve the fit no end, and it has. That's yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Quite often it's that simple to solve a problem, isn't it? And people get themselves into all sorts of
a lather.
Yeah,
I did that. Question from James Mayer, who says, "What are the best sanding sticks, please?" I'll answer that in a second. What are your weapons of choice, Drew?
Well, my weapons of choice have been and still are the Flory range,
right?
Because I've he's put consistently. He's continually updated his range. He's continually done the research. He's done videos where he's gone out to see these companies who are manufacturing them for him. So he's been completely involved in all the processes. And I've always thought his sanding sticks and sponges have been the best on the market consistently. Now, I know that you've got another range that you've been using recently.
Well, I'm just going to come to that.
So, but I've been using Flory for years, and I'm happy with Flory. But I'm always open to trying new stuff and changing. So, on the set, the ones that you're about to talk about, I will be looking into in the very near future.
Well, yes. The only problem with the ones I'm looking at the moment is that they're currently out of stock at Premium Hobbies, based just down the road in Weston. But this is. I got two of the. Well, they've actually got them individually, but they do them in a pack as well. I might just buy them individually. But these are the ones. These are more sponges. So they, as you can see, they're not. They've got a fair amount of give to them. But I got the 400 grit ones because I just thought I'd go for a medium one as a good compromise. I'm loving these. These are just. They're brilliant, and they're not doing so far. They're not doing what a lot of sanding sponges do, and that's that
break up
and start to. I mean, you're probably thinking, why are you hanging on to that, Mock? Why haven't you thrown that away? The simple reason that actually this is pretty good for polishing large surfaces. So, but yeah, these Infini model, these are the soft backs. So, like I say, they are soft and spongy. I am loving these, and after the show I think I might actually go and see if they've just got them all individually. They also do let's just go. They also do these ones called the Matadors, but these are a little bit thinner. They're still described as soft. I don't know. Perhaps I'll order a set of them, see what they're like. Actually,
well, it can't hurt to try, can it? I mean,
they'll get used.
This Flory double grit one was the one I was using last November on the weekend show that we did, the show. That was the one I was using on the Hercules back then, and that's still the one I use every day. So that's 7 months on. Yeah, and I'm still using that one every day. It's had the end trimmed off a few times, so to sort of like expose a bit more of the new abrasive to the edge when you're sanding on an edge. But again, they last. They just last. So I think Infini model and Flory are the two that get the vote from us.
Yeah, I'm just having a look here. They're doing Premium have got them. These come in like a 2-pack. So they're doing the 220, 400, 600, 800, 1000, the 1500, 2500, and the 4000 grit ones. That does work out considerably more expensive than buying them in the multi-pack, though. So what's that? 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21, 25, 24. So it's going to be about, it's going to be almost the best end of almost 30 quid there. But I'm sure they will get them in stock in the meantime. I think what I will do is I might order a set of these ones like I say, just to see what they're like. They're not going to be rubbish. Let's put it that way, because I'm really impressed with the quality of Infinity.
Sure, they're not going to be rubbish. But again, just a word in support of good old wet and dry.
Yeah,
always have good old fashioned wet and dry. 400 and 800 are about the only two I use. Use them wet, and it still does about 70% of my sanding work.
Yeah.
It's just
I got a big multi-pack set of that from Poundland a couple of years ago. Lasts forever. It really does.
Yeah, and it's so cheap that as soon as a piece of it starts not performing how you want, you ditch it and cut another piece. It's just, people have got away from wet and dry in recent sort of 10 or 15 years, and there's really no reason for it. It's still, as far as I'm concerned, it should probably still be the cornerstone of your sanding stock.
Yeah, I think we can all. I think innovation is good. He says, with his battery sander that he bought about 10 years ago, which is essentially just a electric toothbrush with
electric toothbrush, isn't it? Yeah,
it is, but it is very good though. It's fabulous. But we can all get carried away with gizmos like this, which has probably only been used about 5 times in the 10 years I've had it. But as you say, wet and dry paper. I think essentially what I might do at some stage is literally have a I hate to use that phrase, back to basics kind of build, whereby I'm only using this wet and dry, and that's it.
I see a couple of other questions have popped up. Can you wet sand with Flory sticks? That's Wayne Beatty asking if you can wet sand with Flory sticks. I have, Wayne, but I don't tend to. I find that almost any sanding stick I've ever used, it will shorten the life of a sanding stick using it wet. So again, if I do any sanding with sanding sticks and I want to wet sand for a smoother surface afterwards, I will then switch to some 800 grit wet and dry used wet. So you can, but I don't tend to. And Steve Moore saying, I don't know if you use it to a polishing paste. Yes, I use it on canopies when I need to. But again, in terms of polishing plastic, no, not at all, because it's vanishingly rare that you need to go smoother than 800 grit. But for canopies and stuff, obviously, the smoother the better. So yes, I do.
I'm just actually, whilst I just delve into the drawer here to find something, tell people about the Trizact stuff.
Oh, yeah, Trizact. Oh God, do you know what? I can't find it now. It's in here.
Well,
but it's Trizact is used for polishing car paint, and best stuff I've ever used for polishing paint and finishes. You cut it up into little. You cut the bit into little squares like that, and I'll just show. I'm going to switch camera positions to. Shall we go to the real close up? So you can see that's had the markings put on it there, and all I'm going to do is with the Trizact wet sand the decals. You really have to go at this to do any damage at all to the paint. But what it does do is smooth and blend all this stuff in before you blend and smooth all the decals in before you move on to your final finishes. And so that's over a gloss surface there. It's now been sanded, and hopefully you can see wet sanding with that 3000 grit wet has done absolutely no damage and has just polished the paint up a little bit in the markings. So when we move to the final finish, the markings will be that much more integrated into the final finish, because it'll be trapped between coats of gloss varnish and polished.
I've just found this. I just found these in the drawer here, and these were bought about 5 years ago, about 4 or 5 years ago. And this is from the local Poundland, and it's wet and dry assorted sandpaper. 16 sheets for £1. For £1. And what you have here, I've just been going through it. You've got 240 grit. You've got 400. You've got 180, and you've got 80. I'm just seeing what else there is in here. 80, 400, which I think that's, you know, for £1, I think that's a pretty fair selection of wet and dry papers.
And that will last you for years.
Well,
Last you for years.
Let's just say you can see how much I've got through. Here is an A4 sheet.
Yeah.
Oh, the humanity.
Yeah.
And of course, you can always use that and wrap it around other things, make your own custom sanding bits and pieces.
For years, I had an awful lot of I used an awful lot of micro mesh.
Yeah.
And I see Steve Moore says on one-to-one Harriers we use micro mesh to take out canopy scratches. The thing is that micro mesh is designed to abrade plastics, and it's not anywhere near as good at doing that to paint. Whereas Trizact I wouldn't use on plastic, but is specifically designed for paints and varnishes. So it's one of those, they'll all sort of cross over and do each other's roles to a degree. But Trizact is designed specifically for paint and lacquers in particular, and works spectacularly well on them. Whereas micro mesh, I barely use now, apart from some canopy stuff on, you know, scale canopies. Because anything finding the wet 800 grit on, you know, normal plastic is a waste of my time.
Yeah.
So micro mesh tends to have sort of gone out of use, because if I'm polishing paint and I want 3000 grit to polish paint, I'll use Trizact because it's designed specifically for the job.
I'm going to give a shout out to these as well, because I bought these from the local pound shop a few years ago. These are absolutely first class for dealing with mold lines on canopies, because as you can see here, these are supposed to be for nails, but as you can see there, you've got file, which is the coarsest abrasive, then you've got buff, then you've got smooth, and then you've got shine. And I've used these on the Tamiya 48 scale F14 Tomcat to get rid of the mold line. They work a dream. They absolutely work a dream. The other thing is if they start kind of coming apart, you can actually take the abrasive off. You can see that there, and what you end up with is very thin, kind of abrasive sheets for polishing things like paint and car bodies and things like that. So I think you get these. I think you get 2 in a pack for £1.
Yeah,
brilliant.
Yeah. I mean, I've used them before and used them on canopies and stuff, and they're great. David Hanson saying, do I see a qualitative difference between Tamiya sanding sponges and Trizact? Mainly, Dave, in that the Tamiya sanding sponges are much more geared towards polishing plastic than they are paint. Again, it comes down to the Trizact being custom designed to polish paints in general and lacquers in particular. I don't know how coarse and fine they go down to. I've only ever used a 3000 grit, and it does everything I need to paint. You've really got to work to go through to actually cut through paint to back to the plastic or anything, and it just smooths it right out brilliantly. So it's a difficult one. Tamiya is closer to, if you like, micro mesh, and it's designed for plastic really rather than paint. So that's the that's the trade-off. One of the other things I'd like to say, if people haven't done this before, this is a piece of extruded TL, T-shaped aluminium, and all I do is apply some double-sided tape, wet and dry on here, and then you've got an absolutely flat surface for when you want to sand something dead flat.
Isn't that one of the things that we were always told to use when it came to vac forms, wasn't it?
Yes, yeah, it was. Mr. Adams sort of popularised this many years ago, and I've got a few pieces of that TL around here with different grits on it. And again, if it starts, if you start clogging the paper up or the paper starts degrading, I just peel it all off, clean the adhesive off with a bit of acetone or lacquer thinner or whatever, and put some fresh wet and dry. It just gives you the ability to do absolutely perfect.
Yeah. Johan Olivier raises a question which we missed a bit earlier on when we were having trouble with the feed. It says, Wayne brought up an interesting question. Are there any rules of thumb as to when wet as opposed to dry sanding is imperative? I will pass on a tip that was given to me by somebody who works in car restoration. And that is when it comes to applying fillers and putties to to cars for repairs and whatnot, they only ever dry sanded them. They never wet sanded them because the putty can become absorbent. It'll take on the liquid. It can then destabilize, and that's when it will start. It can actually start cracking and falling off. You can have a putty where filler where it looks like it's dry, but deep down it's still got that element of moisture to it, which the moment you start putting paint or other things over it. So their advice was always, when it comes to any kind of filler, and I suppose this can also apply to us as modelers, is always dry sand, don't wet sand filler. But Drew, what's your mileage may vary?
My mileage does vary for models. I will always wet sand if possible.
Right.
If the only time I won't wet sand really is if I don't want the sanding juice to get somewhere where it's not going to be easy to clean out of. But overall, I will wet sand every single time.
I will
definitely for finishing for the final 800 grit sort of sand through before starting to paint. I will always wet sand.
Yeah, no, I will. I'm like you. I pretty much will, wet sand almost every. Obviously, I'm not going to wet sand when I'm doing these bits, but anything where, where it's like major seams, or if I've used super glue as a filler, I will wet sand. But if on the very rare occasions I actually have to use model filler, I won't. I'll dry sand it.
But I think the main thing for me is that it's just the sheer difference wet sanding makes to clearing to keeping the cut going. The paper doesn't clog up. It clears the sanding dust as you go, and it just cuts so much better.
In fact, Pavel Krupovich makes a very good point. He says sanding resin is best done wet, mainly for safety reasons. Yeah, absolutely.
See, I kind of this is one of those issues that I think has been overblown. Resin, when it's set, when it's cured, is inert. You don't want to be breathing it the same as you don't want to be breathing plastic when you're sanding it, or filler dust when you're sanding it. But cured resin is inert. The danger is in uncured resin, which has cyanos in it and stuff like that, which can be toxic. Now, I am most of the time I will dry sand resin parts to make them fit into an ejector seat, something like that. I will always dry sand them and be happy doing that, because the resin dust is quite heavy. It doesn't become airborne, anything like that. In fact, you can't really, it's not like you can smell it or anything while I'm sanding it. So I think it's never going to hurt to wet sand it, but it's not the safety hazard that people say it is. Certainly if people are saying you should wet sand resin and then going about using 2K varnishes and stuff, I kind of like the arguments over for me there and then. I'm not, not my monkeys, not my circus. But I think, it's not quite the safety hazard people say when it's cured. Because
I really can't. Well, I can use resin, but I have a sensitivity to it. So I have to be, if there are resin bits and I am cutting and gluing them, I do have to wear gloves and I do have to wear a mask. And if I'm sanding them, I certainly will be wet sanding them. But
that's a sensitivity peculiar to your medical condition, if you like. It's not really, it's not a general thing. I mean, I'm not saying don't sand resin wet. I'm saying it's not quite the safety hazard that it's been made out to be. Whereas you need to, certainly with 3D printing and stuff, all the safety sort of stuff has to be adhered to, because I've got wet resin on my hands before now, and it will start to irritate and burn in a very few minutes. So you have to be careful. But once it's cured, it's basically inert.
Yeah, Tim Perry also says dry sand tooling board as well. Yeah.
Yes, well, it's totally absorbent, isn't it? And well,
yeah. In fact, I'm going to be having adventures with sanding at some stage, because I have the. Did I have fun with this? I tried. I have had success in the past of putting lacquer paint straight onto plastic, and it's usually worked fine. The Tamiya lacquers, Spencer said, just put them straight onto plastic. I did it with the little Fujimi Mini, and it didn't work. So then I tried priming it, and then tried putting color on top of that. It didn't. The primer, the finish just wasn't how I wanted it. So I've ended up stripping this right back. Ironically, this actually looks like the ones in my friend Ian, who runs his classic car business. This actually does look like one of the ones he's got out the back now. So when he has his
that's pretty much how most minis look these days.
Very good.
Well, no, it is, isn't it?
It is. But he has the guy. He has one of his assistants out the back who all he does is just sanding down the metal panels, ready for the first coat of primer, and then putting the paint on. So I've managed to get most of the paint off of this, thankfully, because this isn't supposed to be a pristine concours finish anyway. I will go back at this with some. No, I'm not. I am going to. I'm going to sand this back and just get it all nice and smooth again, like I say, with 800 grit, wet and dry. Then I'm going to be using a Tamiya spray can. I think it's TS 16 or something. One of those, and it's going to be TS spray straight to plastic. And then we'll work on it from there. But lesson learned. Yeah, I don't build cars that often, and sometimes these things work and sometimes they don't. But like I say, ironically, the fact that I've had to go in there and strip this back and whatnot actually works in favour of it for the simple reason that I've still ended up with a little bit of debris down the rain gutter here, a bit like the real car. So
yes, very much so.
We're not going to worry about that. So yes. This has been the sanding special tonight, I think.
Yeah.
All right, so this is all right, Johan. We'll throw this one back at you. Isn't sanded resin molecules different from sanded polyurethane?
Don't see why it would be.
Okay.
I said I'm going by something, a discussion I had with an industry professional a few years ago. Who said no, once it's cured, it's inert.
Right.
The uncured stuff is very definitely something you need to be careful with, and you don't want to be breathing, resin dust in, when it's sanded. But then resin dust is so heavy that it doesn't easily become airborne, like polystyrene particles don't easily become airborne. Where do you end up when you're dry sanding polystyrene? Where do all those flakes end up? In your lap, don't they? And when you brush them off, it doesn't come up into a cloud, does it? You brush it off and it brushes off down to the next lowest level, or the floor or whatever. So I'm only going going by my experience and what I was told. So I don't claim any overarching knowledge, but I've always been told it was inert when it's. People will have sensitivities to it. Some people will develop sensitivities to it, exactly the same as 2Ks and all that kind of stuff. I've always been told it's inert, and I certainly have never had any issue dry sanding resin. I've been doing it for 30 years. Albeit I don't do it. I'm not doing it in a professional capacity. I'm doing it, you know, I'm sanding the stub off an injector seat of that size and stuff like that.
I think it would become a problem if you're talking about industries where large resin components are being sawn and shaped and everything, where you are,
and people are using windies to blow, airlines to blow it off and all that kind of stuff. That's going to force stuff airborne.
Yeah, so I think that's possibly where there is that kind of not that crossover, not confusion, but if you're using a circular saw and you're cutting resin, you might need to be mindful of it. If you're just here and you're using a bit of wet and dry on a tiny little piece, chances are no. But as Mike Reeves says, always wear a mask. So Mike works in resin, so it's and a respirator. Always wear a mask. There we go. Always wear a mask or a REAP. He says. I think he means respirator. In fact, Mike says I wear a respirator when I stand off casting block leftovers to smooth them out before I package parts. So there you go. Mike works with the stuff. So we'll take that. We'll take our cues from Michael there. Get him to talk about it actually when we get him on the show again. So that was interesting. As the interesting modeling company.
I've some good stuff here that says it can irritate the respiratory tract, contribute to rhinitis and asthma. But yeah, I mean, I would suggest that what we're talking about there is the physical attributes of the dust irritating the respiratory tract, not it being poisonous. Yeah, do you see what I'm saying? There's a difference. Difference between something being poisonous and possibly, but then I come back to my argument that it doesn't become airborne anyway when you're doing it in here
in our hobby, no, it doesn't.
It's not becoming airborne and stuff like that. But that said, you can't be too careful. So I'm never going to say don't use a respirator if you're more comfortable using a respirator. I never have. And
there we go. I think the general advice would be, if in doubt, play safe. There's no harm in playing safe. I mean, it's a bit like when certainly when I'm airbrushing here, if I'm literally airbrushing tiny parts, if I'm just kind of say for example I'm airbrushing some bits on this sprue. I'll have the window open, but I'll be generating so little actual kind of overspray. I won't bother. The moment I actually start to do this, it goes into the spray booth, the fan comes on, and I'm wearing a mask. But for small, tiny jobs, even if I'm spraying freehand camo or mottling, I'm not going to wear a mask for that because the amount of, like I say, I will keep a window open, certainly, but the amount of paint you're actually generating is so minute. It's but as we say, if you are in doubt, always play safe. It's not worth messing around with.
No, do what makes you most comfortable, but whatever you do, don't use 2Ks in the home. We are really quite adamant on this. I know you'll get people who say, "Oh, I've used 2K and I've never had a problem." Yeah, there are people who've walked blindfolded across a motorway and have not been struck down by an HGV. It doesn't mean you should do it. It's 2K's paints and varnishes and stuff. I've got a real clear coats. I've got a real issue with because that's airborne stuff, and that the airborne stuff you can't detect. It's not a case of you can smell it; it's in the air. The airborne stuff with those isocyanates, you can't detect it until it's too late.
Yeah, I think perhaps we'll have a separate show on this at some stage. Stir up a bit of controversy, but it is a serious point though. I know people who work with 2K and professionals, and their simple mantra is you don't cut any corners, you don't mess around with the stuff. It's very good.
It's positive pressure filtration, water filtration, all this kind of stuff. It's fantastic stuff, but the idea of most people sitting in their hobby room and spraying it, is just you might as well be playing Russian roulette with 3 chambers loaded, because it will catch up with you eventually.
Yeah. Oh, right. Well, we've managed to I've managed to get to an hour now without actually anybody saying, "Do you see our show on Sunday?" It was a confused man from Dudley being ill on the internet. Any other business? What are you working on at the moment, Drew? What are you working on? I see you're working on another Mirage.
The Mirage 2000. It's still the Mirage 2000, which we are. I've got all the decals on it now, so it will have a second coat of gloss varnish to seal them in, because obviously, just to give you, bear with me, let's have a look. So those markings on there, they've been applied over a gloss finish with no softening solutions or anything at all. I think we can here endeth the argument, really, doesn't it? What else have I done? Let's have a look. So these are my little, see if I can get them in. So I've designed and 3D printed my own Matra 530D missiles, which are painted up there and washed and putting the markings on, which I'm really quite pleased with the way they came out. Currently, so they were all designed and 3D printed by myself. But you can see some tiny printing artifacts at the rear of the forward fins there, which really won't show up under a coat of varnish too badly, and I'll be under the wing anyway. So yeah, we're we're kind of working through putting the final little markings on things like the pylons and the tanks and stuff. So and something that was discussed the other night as well was pins, wasn't it? Pinning stuff I saw discussed on the Eduard site a couple of nights ago. So centerline pylon there. There's some pins, which means that pylon will drop in there like so. Hopefully you can see the phenomenal level of surface detail on this kit as well.
Yeah, that does look lovely. That's also why Albion alloys are so useful, because
there's Albion alloys, and there's the tank.
Yeah.
The pylon pinned in place, so that'll need a couple of dabs of super glue, and we're good to go.
Yeah.
So yeah, pinning using pins. They're sort of like their 0.5mm brass rod used to make those pins. So yeah, I'm hoping to get that finished this week, because it's been lingering around for about 2 weeks now, slowly sort of ambling towards completion rather than galloping. And there's a few more projects I really want to get onto.
Yeah, this is why I want to get a wiggle on with this Whirlwind, because I've got some other things.
I wanted to build that Whirlwind. I really wanted to get started on that Whirlwind, and then that ICM. I got another ICM Invader this week, and I really want to build the Invader now. So I've got a sort of larger scale 48th metal finish.
I do hope Spencer isn't watching tonight, because Johan says, "Can Drew be a permanent fixture, please?" Ooh.
Oh, hey, don't look at me. I'm just here talking. Tim Perry says he loves 3D printing. Yeah, so do I, Tim. And unfortunately, at the moment, I'm down to one printer, because that's the motherboard for my Sonic 4K currently, which is stripped apart because it ceased working for the second time this week, and I can't get it working again. So having said that, the Photon, which is still fine, is printing at the moment. So whether the 4K ever works again or not is currently open to debate. So I love it, but I wish the manufacturers would pay more attention to quality control, shall we say? Because once you open these cheap printers up, they're really not very well made inside. So I'm currently a printer.
No, I don't know if I mentioned this on Wednesday, but I'll repeat this. I'll repeat this story for anybody who missed it. And this is just a cheap little Hobby Boss 72nd scale, quick build Focke-Wulf 190. This thing is about 20 parts. Honestly, it's. I like these kits because they're good for we just want to kind of mess around on projects. And this was a mess around project because this was trying out that Fengda FE 180 to do camo and some modeling in it. Anyway, the trick that I did, which is worth, I think it's worth repeating in case anybody missed it, was I congratulated myself on what I thought was a reasonable job with a 26-pound airbrush. Then realised I hadn't painted the wheel wells, which need to be RLM at 02 grey. Now, I could have masked them with tape, but I didn't fancy masking curved surfaces. So what I ended up doing was dusting off my Vallejo Model Air RLM 02. Now, bear in mind, as you can see, this is glossy because this had a coat of Mr. Surfacer, the gloss, the UV cut stuff. So just airbrushed those wheelbays in RLM 02 Model Air. Didn't worry about the overspray. Got overspray around the edges of it. Wasn't going to worry about that. Then it was a case of getting a cotton bud and some Vallejo airbrush cleaner and just moistening the cotton bud and then working my way around the edges to get rid of all the overspray. The Vallejo airbrush cleaner doesn't affect the Mr. Color because that's a lacquer, and it just takes it all off. And that's it. That's simple. It was just one of those kind of light bulb moments of like, let's just be lazy. But it works.
If it works, it works, doesn't it? There's no right or wrong way. As I always say, you don't need to stand by your techniques as long as your results work.
That's the job.
I don't need to stand by my techniques. I stand by my results. I see Steve Moore's just asked what my choice of gloss varnish is. As John has just mentioned, Steve, it's this.
Yeah.
It's Mr. Color GX112 Gloss Super Clear 3 UV cut. But basically it's just the best gloss varnish I've ever used. Thinned about 70 to 80%.
You have to thin it far more than you think you do.
Yeah. So thin it back 70 to 80% with any of the Mr. Color thinners, leveling or the normal thinner, and just blast a couple of coats on, and you end up with a coat of varnish. Now, bear in mind that this one has been sanded back with Trizact and flattened off a bit, but that's a couple of light coats. So you can catch it in the light there and kind of see how it works. And that's plenty good enough for decals. Especially, I have to say, the Model Swit decals are just phenomenally well printed. Yes, it is. Well, it's kind of hot in the way that the Japanese lacquers are hot. It won't eat plastic, but it will eat underlying layers of paint. So is it hot? Technically, yes, but practically not all that hot now.
I'll tell you what will eat plastic, and that is Tamiya lacquer thinner slow dry. It
Really?
will actually etch some plastics because I was cleaning some bits off of, can't remember what it was that I did. I just started cleaning stuff off, and I suddenly felt the tissue that I was using starting to fur up and pick up things. What I used on the Mini was I actually just used a piece of sponge, wore gloves obviously, but a bit of sponge, dipped it in my. Honestly, if ever you're in pound shops and you find these are little curry dish things. They're like the curry dish condiments. Brilliant, absolutely brilliant for mixing paints and things. Just a bit of Mr. Color thinner in there, a bit of sponge, perfect.
Yeah, I've stripped many a model off with just Mr. Color, and rags or bits of kitchen towel soaked in Mr. Color thinner and just worked over the surface for a while. It doesn't tend to. It won't attack the plastic. In fact, I have soaked parts in Mr. Color, neat Mr. Color thinner for about 6 months. Yeah, it's taken the paint straight off, but 6 months later the plastic is still fine.
Yeah, but the Tamiya lacquer thinner, the slow dry, certainly some types of plastic, it will actually start biting into it. Yeah, that's the stuff. It's good stuff though. Also, just a very, very quick thing, going back to the Mini again.
I had a quick note of that, and that has got much hotter stuff than Mr. Color.
The chrome parts on this, I literally put in a sandwich tub with some Mr. Muscle oven cleaner and put them in there for literally half an hour. Took all the chrome off. Absolutely. In fact, Mr. Muscle oven cleaner is also very good for lifting Tamiya acrylics and Vallejo acrylics. Won't shift Mr. Color lacquer paints though. So anyway,
I must try and find the MSDS for that Tamiya lacquer thinner, because that smells like it's got something like ethyl acetate or something in it, which is one of the constituent parts of Tamiya cement.
Yeah.
So I must do a quick search for that.
Right. Any other business?
Oh, we're properly ending now, are we?
We're properly ending now. Yeah, we're properly ending now. I'm feeling an expiration coming on, certainly. So,
excellent.
Do I get a medal for this tonight? Because I literally crawled off my, I'm at shades of Tony.
All together now.
It's just shades of Tony Hancock. This is. Do I get a badge? No, you get a cup of tea and a biscuit.
Time.
Unbelievable. Right. On that note, no, Johan, he's not going to be a permanent fixture if he's going to be that ungrateful. On that note, ungrateful. It just remains to say thank you for watching tonight's interesting modelling co-show. Given how we weren't going to do one, and then I just thought, no, I could either sit upright and feel terrible, or lie down and feel terrible. And I thought, no, we'll sit upright and get on with some modelling. Let's do that. So thank you for watching. Thank you to our correspondent from South Somerset for joining us tonight.
Dan South.
We'll look forward to eventually getting together at some stage, although bear in mind that the guest room at the moment is currently got all the stuff in the back bedroom, which is being converted into a library. So as and when you do come up, you might actually have to sleep in the library for a short time.
I've slept in the library before.
I've certainly fallen asleep.
Room.
Yeah, but I've certainly fallen asleep in the library on a couple of occasions. But anyway, on that note, as always, thank you for watching. Just remains for us to say stay safe, stay out of trouble, and we will see you Wednesday. You up for Wednesday? Are you free Wednesday? Yeah. All right. We'll try and do a much more, try and do something different on Wednesday.
Scripted and organised. Scripted and
No.
organised.
Do you know what? We always say that we like to shake things up on this thing, and I think the fact that now we're able to do all this fancy schmancy switching between views and workshop stuff, I think it adds a different dimension. So, actually, I do have to say to Drew that last week he gave me a quick run through OBS and how you can do this, and it's like game changer. So I do have to say thank you, Drew, for that. You will be paid in tea and cake, which is of course the currency of the Interesting Modelling Company.
Is the currency? Yes.
Is the currency? Yeah. I think tea and cake at the Blitz.
Oh, that works for me.
They actually put up some of their that velvet cake that they did the other day. I was just like, oh, it's very good. Anyway, on that note, stay out of trouble. We'll see you all Wednesday. Bye for now.